This training video is to show you how to create your own Gspoc registration form in Qualtrics using the templates that you've been given in the Gspoc group library in Qualtrics. So we're going to start here at the main home screen, sort of a dashboard for your Qualtrics account. Yours will look very different from mine. I've got a ton of stuff in mine. I use this all the time. If you haven't really used it, then that's fine. You won't have anything here. It'll just be easier to find things in. Everybody's going to start in this top left-hand corner, these three bars, and you're going to go down to library. Now the first thing before you move on is to check that you are in the Gspoc group library. Most people were added already, but you might not be in there, and so the quick way to check is to click on your name in the top left-hand corner and look for Gspoc group library, and then if you see this, you're part of the library and you can proceed with this video. If you do not see this, that means you're not in the library and you need to send me an email about that so I can get you added. So assuming that you have this Gspoc entry right here, we're going to stay in your personal library and we're going to add a folder. Now you don't have anything in here probably. I have tons, but you're going to come in here and click on new folder and just call it Gspoc registration. Okay, that folder is empty. It's going to stay that way. We're going to switch top left-hand corner down to Gspoc, the group library. I'll say this. This is a group library. Something like 60 people have access to this, and 60 people have the ability to make some pretty destructive changes to what's in here. Please don't. What you should be doing in this library is viewing content and copying content to your own library. Don't delete anything, don't edit anything, don't translate anything, don't rename anything, because any one of those things can make a big headache for people who are trying to access this at the same time. There are backups of this stuff, but let's not use them if you could. Just leave them as is. All you should be really doing here is viewing and copying. Anyway, so this Gspoc library contains some templates that we're going to use to build a registration for each school. And so what you'll do, first thing, is you have to copy the surveys that you need over to your own account. So we're going to start with this Gspoc registration survey. This is going to be for every single school. It's 01 because it's the first one that you're going to put in your chain that you're going to put together. Right here, this XX one, the reason it's XX is because that drops it to the bottom of my list. It makes it easier for me to reference. And that's going to be the last one that you have. If you are an ECHS standalone school, you're going to have these two in there. If you have an ECHS program, but you don't have it for all of your students, then you're going to actually create two different forms. One of them is going to take them for the students who are ECHS through all four of them. For our non-ECHS students, you're going to take them just through the first one and the last one, skipping over these two pieces of information. Okay, so how do we get this stuff over to our own personal accounts? On the far right-hand side, you're going to click on that gear. And you've got a bunch of options here. The only thing you should be using here, only things, are view survey, copy survey. That's it. Don't rename it, don't edit it, don't translate it, and please do not delete it. So we're going to copy this first one pretty easily. Select your library, select that registration folder, and go slowly here. It does have to load each one, and leave it named exactly like it is. Hit copy. I have an ECHS, so I'm going to copy these as well. You might not need to, that's fine. If you have an ECHS program at all, please copy them. And then my last one. Okay, that's 4 of them. So I'm going to switch libraries, top left-hand corner, drop down, go to my name. Now, in that Gspoc registration folder, I should have these 4 files. If you didn't, go back and copy them in there again, but there you go. Those are the 4 that you need. Now, organization is huge here because, especially if you're getting to like me, where you've got 15, 20 surveys in here, it gets confusing, so that's why I've got the folders named the way I do. You can drag stuff around the different folders in here. So these are your copies. The link has been severed with the original, and so whatever you do to these, It's not going to impact what the group has. As long as you are within your personal library, make sure you know where you are at all times. Just kind of like focus in that way. Now, please don't edit these, at least this first one and the last one, because these are pretty complicated, and any change within that first one and the last one can have a ripple effect through everything. So you're going to leave those alone. The ECHS discipline agreement and the orientation, those can have some tweaks to them, and I'm going to show that in a different video for the ECHS folks, because it might be something that you want to make an adjustment here or there because of practices on campus and whatnot. But this O1 GSPOC registration and the XX GSPOC signatures, those should not be changed in any way. If you notice a mistake, send me an email and let me know, because I don't want a little change to cause a huge disruption. Okay, so we've got these 4 set up. So let's go ahead and create our project. So go to the top left-hand corner, 3 lines, click on projects. You probably don't have anything here, that's fine, I've got tons. At the very bottom, I have create new folder. So I'm gonna click that. It's gonna be GSPOC registration. It's gonna be empty. We're gonna create a project at top right. Survey from scratch. Survey, bottom right, get started. Naming this is going to be important because I'm going to see all of these, and so are Jacqueline Avarete. So we're going to call it, for my situation, 082 tabs. If this is your ECHS survey, or if you are a standalone ECHS campus, add ECHS, GSPOC, registration. Okay, so this is really important because when you share this with other people, they're going to have to keep track, and if we have a bunch of them all named the same thing, that gets downright impossible. So make sure you put this, please put the leading 0, make it all clean and easy as possible. Under folder, select that new GSPOC registration folder you created, and you want to create a blank survey project, hit create project. It's going to give you something that looks a little bit like a fancy version of Google Forms or Microsoft Forms. We're not going to really worry about anything here right now. What we're going to do is go over to the left-hand side where it says Survey Flow. Left-hand side under Survey, it says Survey Flow. It's this little box with a flow chart. I'm going to click on that. This is behind the scenes. This is like under the hood of how all this is working. And it might look a little intimidating, but we're only going to put a couple things here and then we're going to move on. Step 1, where it says default question block, we're going to delete that. We don't want it. So click on the red delete, confirm. Then we're going to add an element. So go ahead and click on that green add new element here. And it's going to ask you what you want to add. And this is a whole lot of stuff, but what we want to do is refer to one of those surveys that we just brought in. So I'm going to click on reference survey. I'm going to select my library. I'm going to go down to that GSPOC registration folder that I made. I'm going to pick 01 GSPOC registration. Okay, that's the bulk of it. That's like 50 something questions. Now, if you are a standard campus that doesn't have it doesn't have an ECHS program, you're going to add a second one. Yet again, reference survey. Find your library, and you're just going to add that XX GSPOC signatures. And that's it. If you do not have an ECHS program, or if you are creating the one that is not for your ECHS program, you only get 2 elements in here. You can hit the apply button down here and you'll be done. Well, I have an ECHS, and so I'm not done that easily. I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to add in my ECHS ones. My discipline agreement, my orientation, and then because it's an ECHS school, I'm going to have my signatures. Now, look at how I did this. I have this in order of being presented to the family. This has to be first, 01. XX has to be last. Anything else is going to get sandwiched in between those 2 things. Okay, so this is good for me. For the ECHS, I'm going to hit apply. Look in the bottom right hand corner. You have to hit apply to save your changes. And then I'm going to go back, if you look at the top left of your screen, to the survey builder again. And it's going to totally look different than it did before. We have lots of stuff in here now. All these questions, all of them built in here. And I've done you the favor of adding in a little titles. You can actually drop down and see the specific questions in here. Once again, this shouldn't be changed, with the exception of two things in here. But I'll show you that in a separate video, and that's only going to be for the ECHS people. But for everybody else, this should not be changed. This should stay exactly the same. You'll notice that my default question block popped back in again. Ignore it. It's not going to get shown to anybody. It's just barely, it's not really there. It's sort of a shadow. But yeah, so that's it. You've just created your entire registration system within Qualtrics. Okay, so we got a couple different things we can do here. We can preview it, which is just going to pop up in a window and show us what it looks like. If you want to test it, go ahead, but understand that if you test it, you're going to have to go in and delete all of those test responses. It has been tested rather rigorously, so kind of go with it. But if you want to test it, you can. It's all going to go to you. It's not going to anybody else. And then just make sure you delete those test responses. It's going to show you what it's going to look like on a mobile phone, which is pretty nice. It's a little crammed, but that's just the style sheets the district supplied. To get it out to students, though, and families, we're going to have to do a couple more steps. First things first, on the far left-hand side, where it says Survey Options, click on that Survey option. So on the left-hand side of the screen, Survey Options, click there. We're going to modify just a few things here. Where it says Display Name, go ahead and name it something that makes sense. Maybe you just want to call it 082, in my situation, tabs, ECHS, Gspoc, registration. And I'm going to put it in my description as well. Responses. The back button is a little bit quirky. That's because within the surveys, there are certain responses that lead to different pathways, kind of like those old, you create your own storyline, choose your own story books back when we were kids. So I would turn on the back button, but understand that there are times when the user will not be able to go back. And that's because an answer causes some change further down the line, and going back would make no logical sense. I would allow the respondents to finish later, leave the error messages off. Let's talk about incomplete survey responses. I know we like tons and tons of data, but the reality is an incomplete survey response in this, it makes the most sense for it to be deleted. And that's because, let's say that little Johnny starts this process, and then Johnny's a student within the district. Johnny forgets to finish it. It records that incomplete response. If Johnny then tries to go in and do it again, Johnny won't be able to. It'll say, you've already done this. What we want is for Johnny, who didn't finish this thing after a few days, to either go in and see stuff that he'd already put in, which is already there, or for that thing to delete itself automatically so that he can go back and start over. So in my opinion, we're going to hit delete. I think it's the best option. Worst case scenario, little Johnny has to go fill it out again, not the end of the world. And I'm going to set my timeout to probably 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours. You can come in here and change this if it starts to drive you crazy, but maybe 48 hours. And that way that, oh crud, I forgot to finish that, well, I can just start over. Scrolling down, there's nothing else I would change on this. Under security, you need to make sure that you click on to bot detection. And that's going to help you prevent that. It's going to be within the data that is going to say, hey, this might be a scam, okay? And then the only other thing in here that we're going to work on is we're going to click on this translations button. It's the very last thing. Now, translations are automated and translations are actually built in here. So in order to get this to happen, all you have to do is click on Add Language. So click Add Language and scroll to Spanish It's just Spanish, not Latin America Spanish, just Spanish. It's going to say 94%. We're going to call that good enough and hit close. You'll notice that it automatically brought in these translations. These are translations that have been worked on and proofed. Please let me know if you see a mistake. But these Spanish translations are built in here for you, so you don't have to do any translating. Okay, so that's complete. The translations are complete. Go back to your survey builder, top left-hand corner, and we are ready to publish this. Top right-hand corner, it says publish. Nothing is live yet. You'll notice the publish button is blue, just like the red save button in Focus. If it's blue, that means there are changes that have not been saved. So we're going to click on publish. And you don't have to call it anything. This is merely for your records. Ignore the expert review. It's as good as it's going to get because it's big. Click on that publish button. It's activating it to the servers. And it tells you it's been successfully published and activated. You can distribute it using the anonymous link below. So you can copy that link to your clipboard, or we can view the distribution section, which we will do now. This is what you're going to give to your families. If you are an ECHS or non-ECHS school, then you're going to give obviously one link to your ECHS families, and then you're going to build another one without the ECHS stuff and give that link to your non-ECHS families. But that's it. That's what you're going to put on your website. That's what they're going to do. That's what they're access on their phones or on their computers to get this done. So we're going to click OK. Now what's at this distributions tab? Well, let's go up there and look at it. Distributions right here, top left-hand corner. This is where you're going to find that link, and you can pull a QR code from this. So if you click on anonymous link, it's going to give you the same link as before. This link is static. Now, if you delete this survey, the link goes with it, right? So be very careful. So you're going to use this link to distribute to your families. Make sure you got, copy the link and all that. Please ignore emails. Please ignore personal links. Ignore social media and offline app. Ignore downloads. The one that might be helpful is the QR code. This QR code takes you to that link. So you can put it on a sign, maybe at your registration event, or you can put that in an email or whatever you want to do. You can also pause response collection up here at the top left. So that means that students who maybe they missed a deadline, you can pause it if you want to make it so they cannot reach you after the deadline. That's that pause response collection in the top left-hand corner. Let's keep going to the right and talk about data and analysis. This is where your data is going to show up in this data analysis. And I'm going to create a different video that's going to show you how to work with this data. But data analysis right here is how you're going to see all these responses as they come in. And it's going to come in relatively quickly. So it might be a couple of minute delay between when students and families fill this out and when you get it, but it's going to be pretty fast. And this is a live updating page. Obviously, when you export, it becomes disconnected from the real thing, but this is a live updating page, and you can do some manipulation of the data within this. Okay, last thing with this, go ahead and click your 3 bars, go back to your projects page. You have the survey that you built. On the far right-hand side, here are 3 dots. So this is going to allow you to do a few things. Quickly jump to various parts of it and whatever else. What we're going to do is click on the collaborate button. In this field, please add Jacqueline Navarrete to, right, at fwisd.org, and add me, Brian.Waddell, at fwisd.org. This is going to allow us to see what you're working with. And if you email me and say there's an issue with something, I can go in there and change it or fix it or look and see and verify without having to see your screen and do all sorts of stuff in there. It also allows Ms. Navarrete to be able to check and see how things are going without driving you crazy, which I think we like, that autonomy there that we can all kind of see. Please also add the other people or person at your campus who are going to need access to this. So maybe it's your data clerk, maybe it's an assistant or a secretary, something like that. Think of it this way. What if you get a lottery ticket from Santa Claus and you make the Mega Millions, and the last thing we see is your tailpipes as you're driving down the Boca, and you're never going to work for Fort Worth ISD again. Well, Mazel Tov, but we still need access to this information, and so make sure there's some data redundancy and some other people have access to this stuff. So once you've added those names, and it should not be very many people, then you're going to go down here and hit save. And that's going to allow them access. And that's why naming is so important, because there's going to be a lot of these on the screen for me and for Miss Navarrete, and we just want to make sure that we know exactly what school it is and which program it is, ECHS or regular, because otherwise we'll go crazy. But that's it. That's how you build this. Very slow, methodical video. That's how you build this. And I hope that it is easy enough for you guys. Thank you.